Webinar Germinating Equitable Outcomes through Urban Forestry. My name is Alyssa Knox. I'm a planner in the Environment and Development Department for the North Central Texas Council of Governments, or NCT-COG. I'll be moderating today's webinar. This webinar is hosted by NCT-COG and was prepared in cooperation with TCEQ and US EPA. Before we get started, I want to share some background about what NCT-COG is. NCT-COG is a voluntary association of local governments. It is one of 24 regional councils in Texas. As part of NCT-COG's water quality planning work, we host webinars on water quality topics every quarter. If you have any ideas for future topics for these webinars, please feel free to send them to me. My email address is shown on the screen at aknox@nctcog.org, and I'm also dropping it in the chat for you. There we go. Okay. At this time, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. Please remember to keep your microphone on mute until it is time to share a question or comment. Today's webinar is scheduled to last until 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. We will hear from 2 presentations. After each presentation, there will be limited time for questions. Instructions on how to submit your questions will be provided later. Follow-up emails on today's webinar will be sent to all those who registered. If you did not register but would still like to receive the follow-up emails, including the link to this recording and the presentation slides, please email me at the email provided. The presentation slides and recording of this webinar will also be posted under the green banner called Webinars on NCT-COG's Water Resources webpage, which I'm including a link of in the chat. Okay. Today's webinar, we will hear from Emily Plauché, who's the Urban Forestry Coordinator, and Lindsay Hoot, Cool Schools Education Coordinator, both for Texas Trees Foundation, a private nonprofit organization focused on urban forestry, green infrastructure, and sustainable design. Together, they will present Managing the Need to be Treed, review of the Dallas Tree Equity Planting Map, and greening of North Texas schoolyards. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Emily Plauché. Emily is a certified arborist and received a master's degree in forestry from Mississippi State University and a bachelor's degree in natural resource and ecology management from Louisiana State University. At Texas Trees Foundation, Emily helps manage planting projects, design tree planting plans, and provide education to the public. Emily's role at Texas Tree Foundation allows her to combine her background of research, eagerness for community outreach, and passion for educating others on the importance of trees. Emily has always felt connected to the outdoors and enjoys getting other people excited about the trees and plants surrounding them. And now, Emily, you may begin your presentation.
Alyssa, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today. I will be covering in my segment the Dallas Tree Equity Planting Map and Report. So yes. Perfect. So I have my presentation is split kind of into 3 parts. First, going to cover and start with the importance of trees. I think it's really crucial to understand before moving into our tree mapping report, which I'm going to be going over in the second part of my talk. And then I will be kind of closing out with project status currently and what is to come in the future. So a little background on Texas Trees Foundation. I know some of you are familiar with us, but we are an urban forestry nonprofit. We're locally based in Dallas, and we have been around since 1982. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary last year, which was very exciting. So we are a research-based nonprofit that is dedicated to educating and mobilizing the public to help activate all of the great benefits that the urban forest and trees can bring us. So a lot of people are interested in our organization. They ask, what are your main programs? So just to kind of put this as a really kind of high-level overview of the work that we're doing at Texas Trees Foundation, I've split this into 3 programs, and I will talk about kind of the 4th program that is launching in January, which is our workforce program. The first program is focused on urban forest preservation and expansion. A lot of our general tree plantings, tree giveaways, consulting work kind of falls into this category. We also have our Cool Schools program, which Lindsay is going to talk about. This is the greening of Dallas schoolyards and bringing outdoor education to students as well. And then we have our Southwest Medical District Streetscape and Park Improvement. This is a really big multi-phase project that is happening in the Southwest Medical District with a really big street redesign of Harry Hines and a 10-acre park we're planning to put in there as well. So that's just kind of an overview of some of the things we have going on, and some background on Texas Trees Foundation. So I'm going to start by talking about the importance of trees in our cities. This is just really important, I think, building block and understanding why the urban forest is so beneficial to us in cities. So the way that I have kind of the tree benefits split up in this graphic, there are a lot of ecosystem services that I guess the natural world provides us with, some of which are really basic building blocks like supporting services, provisioning, so things we can kind of take from nature, which I'm not going to be focusing on as much, but I will be highlighting a lot on the regulating services that trees in the urban forest can provide us with. So this is cooling temperatures, controlling flooding, purifying our water, storing carbon, cleaning our air. But something that also is really overlooked, I feel like, are the cultural services that trees in the urban forest provide us with. So increasing aesthetics, giving us recreational opportunities, and educational opportunities as well. So something that is super relevant coming off of living in North Texas in this summer has been the intense heat that we've all experienced. So part of what is driving this extreme heat in our cities is the urban heat island effect. A lot of you are probably familiar with this effect, but I like this graphic that is on this slide. So the urban heat island effect happens when structures that are impermeable, so buildings and roads, are going to absorb and then re-emit the sun's heat more than natural landscapes would, such as bodies of water, trees, grass. So in these intensely developed parts of our city, we are going to usually experience hotter daytime temperatures, but also hotter nighttime temperatures. So these surfaces are really good at heating up, these impermeable surfaces, and then they just kind of re-radiate this heat at night. So when we should be cooling down at night and recovering, we are really not able to do that. If you went outside even at 8 or 9 p.m. and this summer, it was still probably like 98 degrees. So yes, next slide, please. And so how we're impacted. So why should we care about this extreme heat that we're experiencing? So more and more people are moving to cities. So more than 80% of Americans live in urban areas, and this is projected to keep increasing. So heat waves, they deter outdoor activity, and heat is the #1 weather-related cause of death in the United States. And I think a really important point on extreme heat and heat waves is that not all community members are equally affected or impacted by extreme heat. So older individuals or elderly, children, those that are immune compromised, low-income individuals, all of these people are at an increased risk during extreme heat and heat waves. And Dallas in particular, if you want to hit the next, and perfect, ranks the 7th hottest city in the nation. Dallas is heating up faster than any other large city besides Louisville and Phoenix, Arizona. And we kind of think, what is to blame in this? And a lot of it is caused by the high amount of impervious surface that we have in our city. But of course, there are solutions and greening strategies. So tree planting and preservation have been found to be the most effective way to help cool our city. So kind of the most obvious ways that trees can help cool is through their shading. So I can tell you, if I was going to go on a walk in the middle of the summer and it had to be during the day, I would definitely pick a tree-lined street or sidewalk. It makes such a difference when we are kind of shading surfaces and obstructing the direct sunlight from hitting that surface and heating it up. But another mechanism that trees can use is this evapotranspiration. So when water is absorbed through the tree, travels through the plant, and then it is evaporated off of the leaf surface. And this uses solar energy to convert water to the water vapor, and that's going to kind of provide an immediate cooling effect in the air immediately surrounding the tree. So tree planting and preservation has been found to be 3.5 times more effective in lowering temperatures when compared to cool material strategies such as reflective roads, roofs and light colored roads. And so tree planting and preservation can change our weather and produce cooler days and nights. This is just a really interesting graphic that I took from our Southwest Medical District team that shows the kind of microclimate variation in temperatures within even just a very small space. We are experiencing quite a difference in temperatures depending on the surface and then if that is shaded or not. So on kind of the left-hand side of this photo, we can see unshaded concrete might be reading that surface at 127 degrees Fahrenheit. If you step under the bus area, that is 98 degrees potentially on a metal bench. And then if you step into the shade and you are taking a reading of the grass, that surface might be as low as 73 degrees. So this is just showing obviously the microclimate and the variation that we can experience just moving throughout our everyday life and how these extreme temperatures can vary throughout our city quite dramatically. And so I've already obviously talked about how important trees are in heat reduction, but there are so many studies and statistics coming out on how trees really improve human health and well-being. The stress reduction, this reduction in lifestyle-related diseases, the improvement of mental and physical health, and providing more recreational opportunities, environmental education, of course, and this real social cohesion that the urban forest helps create in our cities and makes life much more enjoyable and livable. And I think that's super important going into this next slide, getting into equity and the urban forest, because we see all of these amazing and great benefits that trees provide, and that these really should be accessible to everyone. And trees in neighborhoods often mirror the investment that has or has not been made in neighborhoods, and critical infrastructure in low-income neighborhoods often lack trees to help mitigate effects from the urban heat island, poor air quality, and impacts from climate change. So making the tree canopy more equitable, we're balancing the playing field for those who have not had a strong voice or discretionary income to invest in their yards or neighborhoods. So really, we're trying to ensure that everyone, so regardless of race, age, income level, has access to trees and their benefits. So we want to improve the quality of life for everyone, and tree equity is really ensuring trees are in every part of every city. So moving into our tree equity planting map and report that we produced, I am going to first go into the criteria that we used kind of in the formula to create the map. We want to advance to the next. Thank you. So we had 5 main planting categories that went into a formula that gave us, I will show you all in the next slide, the map that it output. So we looked at, there's demographics, economic development, health, air quality, and urban heat island, which was as average maximum temperature. So we have a list of all of the criteria in each of these categories that went into the formula, and we have sources for all of that. If anyone is interested in looking at the full report, it's very interesting, and we have it on our website as well. So this tree equity mapping report is really supposed to be a guide for decision makers, city staff, developers, builders, anyone that really is a stakeholder in the urban forest to help better identify where trees should be strategically planted. So I will show you all some very interesting results on the next slide. So this map you are looking at on the right-hand side of your screen is all of Dallas. It is split and divided into the 14 council districts. So that is the numbers you are seeing in white on this map. And then you see all the different colors. So areas that rank high and are high priority planting areas, the most urgent need, are in purple, followed by emergent areas, which are in red. And then orange are still high priority planting areas. And then as you get into the shades of green, you go to medium, mid to low, and kind of a low planting priority. And within each council district, these are even kind of, we further zoom in by each census block group. Those are also divided. And then so if you wanting to kind of interpret this and you look at this map, it's very striking when you see it, just how much orange and red and purple are concentrated kind of in the southern half of Dallas. That's kind of what immediately, when you see this map, what you see. But if you want to start to interpret it, you can go into the table on the left, and you can go to the overall planting priority column. And if you wanted to see what is the #1 ranking council district in Dallas in need of trees, you would go to the #1, and then you'll see that that is District 4. It's followed by District 6, which ranks second, and then followed by District 7. And you can kind of go through the whole list that way. And I will, in the next slide, go into just a couple, zoom in on a few council districts to show some examples of high ranking, kind of middle, mid ranking, and then lower priority that are from this map. So the first council district is Council District 4. So this ranks first on our planting priority map that we just looked at. So this district is made of a lot of, you can see some large areas in purple. It's a lot of red, so emergent and high priority planting areas. And then we have Council District, there is a kind of a middle one here, Council District 2, where we're seeing more mid to low. We got some green in there, but definitely still areas. Also, sorry, I want to bring up the numbers that are now on these individual council district maps. So all of our council districts, we kind of zoom in on them on the report like this, and we rank by census block group. We zoom in and do a ranking 1 through 5 within each district, and 1 being the highest need priority area in that specific district. So we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you will also see those labeled on these as well. And then our last district that I have as an example, I believe District 14 came in as lowest priority on our map. You can see we still did select, and we still will plant trees in this district. We still have the areas 1 through 5 on this map, but it is mainly composed of low and mid to low planting areas. All right, and so this is just an example. We had our first tree planting event that was based off results from this equity planting map. We had this event last Saturday, and this happened in Council District 1, which is in kind of the top half of the planting priority districts. And where I put the star is where we ended up having a awesome tree planting event where we got 65 trees in the ground in the right-of-way space in front of some residences, residential properties in this neighborhood, which was a really exciting opportunity. So I say that to show you all that it is really, important, and we do go through the process of going out and actually looking at in person what is actually in these areas on the map. So of course we want to try and focus on the areas that are most urgent. So it would be areas 1 through 5 on this map, but we, a lot of the times through community partnerships and opportunities that come up and arise, we got very close to targeting the purple areas in here. And this is kind of realistically what our efforts will look like. And so going into trying to kind of implement this report, like I said, it is a really good guidebook, but just because our map says, oh, we need trees in all of these areas, there's so much more that goes into actually trying to get trees in the ground in these locations. So like I said, all the foresters went out and we actually checked the planting locations in person. There are some instances there's a really large area of purple on Council District 4 map, and we go out there and it's mostly like a recycling plant, and we aren't necessarily going to have the opportunity to go in there and plant trees. So just looking at areas in person to try and bring some initial ideas to the table before going into the community. So we met with council members. That was one of our first big tasks, which took some time because there are 14 council members. And so met with council members individually and brought a few planting ideas to the table. And they really helped us refine and get rooted into the community for input as well. We then met with environmental commissioners who are really great at helping connect us to community members and organizations already that may already be doing this work and have and see a need in part of their community. And then we're currently, this is ongoing, definitely meeting with community members, something we're always doing to try and really finalize planting locations with their input as well. So our goal is to eventually hit all 14 of the council districts, but then also keep coming back and building on the relationships that we've already kind of built in these communities. And I will be kind of in the next slide, just talking a little bit about where we're at. But I will talk first a little more about tree planting. So this is important to bring up because there are some constraints we have. So of course, when we plant trees, we want to make the biggest impact possible. And like I said, there's a lot of impervious surface in Dallas, a lot of concrete. And so going out and planting trees in a street median, in the right of way, these areas could really make a big difference, receiving tree canopy and how we move through our city. One of our constraints, we plant on public property, and we also need permission. So we've gotten really good at planting on in parks, in schools, because we have these really good partnerships with City of Dallas or DISD. And there has to be this agreement for maintenance as well. So we will never plant a tree without a plan for maintenance. And part of that is watering and irrigation. So there's a minimum of 2 years that after a tree is planted, that it needs to be watered. With the summer like we just had, if you can have ongoing watering, forever, that would be obviously ideal. But really 2 years is the minimum that these trees need to be watered. So coming up with a maintenance agreement on, are we going to put an irrigation system in? Are these trees going to be hand watered? Who is going to do that? And then also planting in a street median, something like that, getting permission from the City of Dallas, but then also they have a program called Momentum, and it's this joint partnership between citizens and the city. It's basically an agreement that the citizen or group individual who plants the trees in the median or right of way will maintain those trees. So watering, mulching, pruning for 5 years before that ownership is handed over to the City of Dallas. So all of these things we're having to consider before planting trees. And then, of course, I guess this would honestly be the easiest part for us at this point, digging holes. So we love to use volunteers to plant trees, but we do not hand dig. We quickly found out that it's very hard in North Texas. And so we bring in equipment to dig our holes, and then we use volunteers, and we love to have community members out. If we're doing a school planting, students, we love getting everyone involved because it's a really good chance to bring in tree and urban forestry education as well. So looking forward, I'm going to talk about what we're currently implementing and then some things we have going on down the line. So we have kind of launched our planting program that it's based on this equity mapping report we produced, which is a new program. So of course, anything new, it's harder to get going, get funding. But we have 4 projects for fall of 2023. I mentioned our first of which happened on Saturday. So it's super exciting. I want to say we took kind of the lower half of the council districts, 1 through 6 or 7, as our primary goal for this fall. And then we are looking at remaining districts in the spring, but like I said, this is going to be ongoing, and we will eventually get to all of the districts is our hope. And we have a really exciting tool coming out that we partnered with American Forest to create. We just call it the TESSA tool, but this stands for Tree Equity Score Analysis Tool. So this is really kind of supposed to be an interactive mapping tool. So I was showing you all of the maps we took from our report, but it would be great for community members to be able to go on and actually move around on the map and click and zoom in. And so we are creating this kind of interactive web-based tool with American Forest that is for kind of community use, and identifying these areas that are in need of tree canopy. That is set to come out, I believe, before the end of this year, so in the next couple months. We're always looking to expand and do equity reports and mapping for other cities throughout Texas as well. And I think a really big piece to kind of tie this all together, which I will kind of end on, is our workforce program that we're launching in January of 2024. So this is a jobs training program. It's to help meet the needs, the growing needs for a trained workforce in urban forestry and arboriculture. If we could just go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And so really the big piece of this is not just coming into these communities and planting trees, that being it, but it's really also trying to improve the overall quality of life. And with this program, we are wanting to recruit and train participants. This is really geared towards young adults, so ages 18 to 24, who face barriers to employment. It's this 20-week paid educational hands-on work experience, introducing them to urban forestry and kind of the green jobs workforce. And so our goal is to assist with building equitable communities through a workforce training program that helps pay a living wage and then also provides opportunities for career advancement. So when the participants are done with the 20-week paid program, they will then also be really set up for a job going directly kind of into the green jobs workforce and that connection to employment. So the tree equity map highlights neighborhoods that are in need of more trees. So our goal and vision, and there's been a lot of recruitment that we've already and staff members have already done for this program, is to go into those same neighborhoods and recruit participants for our workforce program as well. So this is something that we're always looking for and relying on the community to help us recruit and get connections. So I just kind of wanted to end on that. And it's an exciting program that we are launching in 2024. So with that, I believe that is the end of my presentation. I am happy to take questions. I put my email up there. And then if anyone has any, workforce inquiries, I put my coworker's email up there as well. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Emily, for that presentation. I am putting the link to the Dallas Tree Equity Planting Map in the chat. If any of our participants want to view that more on their own time, it really is a great read. I recommend it. So now we'll take time for some questions from the audience. You can ask your question in one or two ways. You can use the raise your hand button. I will call on you to unmute your microphone, and then you can ask your question. Or you may type your question into the chat box and I can read them. Okay, so there's a question from Betsy. She wants to know, Emily, if you work outside of Dallas.
Yes, we do. We work throughout the state of Texas. Most of our work is focused in DFW, but yes, we do.
I had a question. I was thinking a little bit about the obstacles to implementation for programs like this. And you mentioned that a little bit. Do you see that being different from other cities that maybe would be smaller than Dallas or have different resources or just a different need? And how do those implementation challenges change from community to community?
That's a very good question. Yeah. And I wonder too about, we're a lot of the times, and obviously implementing the report that we've produced, we're working directly with the city of Dallas. I feel like a lot of it does come down to their capacity as well, and their staffing and funding levels, because, of course, we always want to go and plant trees as much as we can, but it really does come down to the constraint of time and money and who's going to manage the trees long term. I don't know, though, if this would be a different story if we went into other cities. I'm sure there are obstacles in every
Yeah.
in every community. Um, but that is a good question.
Another one came in. Can you please explain more about the methodology used to identify the tree cover in your district assessment?
Yes, we did use part of the formula. We did have canopy cover percentage that went in to the formula, which I'm like, I don't have. I want to say it was 2018 data that we have for canopy cover in Dallas. So that was one of the criteria in the formula. If you look in the report, it will outline that. I think in the there's a table that has all of the sources for the material, and then it might have a few more notes if you're interested in that.
I see Molly has her hand raised. Go ahead, Molly. You can unmute and ask your question.
I have a question more about the urban heat island issue and the different surfaces and how cool or hot they get. And I went to one of the DISD campuses. It's a cool school campus, and it had some artificial turf on part of the playground equipment area, and it was 140 degrees, and the grass nearby was 90 something. I don't remember exactly. Is there something that you can do to encourage more natural turf and discourage artificial turf from an
That's a good
island perspective?
Yes, no, that is a good point. The artificial turf obviously is going to get a lot hotter than real grass would. I think Lindsay is going to, in the next segment of the webinar, is going to really touch on that, because they're specifically for like play equipment and things like that, always encouraging like heat safe materials. And I don't want to say we would ever encourage necessarily using artificial turf. But that is a good point. And Lindsay will bring that up in her talk as well.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. These are great questions.
Yeah.
Are there any further ones before we go on to our next presentation? And like Emily said, she has put her email up on the slides there, and so you are welcome to reach out to her with any questions, and she's also included the workforce email contact as well. So now I would like to introduce our next speaker, Lindsay Hoot. Lindsay is the Cool Schools Education Coordinator for Texas Trees Foundation. Her role with the foundation includes the development of hands-on urban forestry curriculum that promotes nature connection and environmental stewardship. She works closely with teachers to encourage the use of outdoor learning areas and build confidence in taking any lesson outside of the classroom and into nature. Lindsay graduated from Texas State University with a Bachelor of Arts in Resource and Environmental Studies in 2012. She has over 12 years of experience working professionally in the outdoor education field at places like Texas Parks and Wildlife and Earth Native Wilderness School. Her true passion is connecting families to nature and exploring all the incredible resources it provides. And now, Lindsay, you may begin your presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you for that introduction. I am very excited to share with you a little bit more about our greening initiative with the Cool Schools program and what that all entails. I have recently become the program manager, so I'm excited for that as well. And again, we can get started. So with this presentation, I hope to answer a few questions for you on what is a cool school, how do we design these spaces and keep them maintained, and how are we improving park access through our Cool Schools Neighborhood Park program? The Cool Schools program, it began in 2017, and it connects students and teachers to nature by creating fun and engaging outdoor spaces that cultivate the students' awareness of the natural world. We do that by creating these really fun and engaging play and learning areas. And we can go into the next slide and we'll kind of explore that a little bit more. That increase tree canopy coverage, promote outdoor education, improve public health, and create those outdoor spaces. So I think Emily kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. Historically, schoolyards are some of the hottest spaces in urban areas, and that's because they're very under-canopied, specifically in the spaces that students and families and teachers would like to come outside. So with our program, we aim to increase the tree canopy coverage as well as the biodiversity, making it an overall healthier space for the urban forest. We promote outdoor education through teacher trainings and curriculum that build confidence in teachers to take a lesson that they may feel more comfortable, say, inside the classroom, outside, so that we're all connecting with nature. And then we also know just spending time outside regularly, it's makes us happier, healthier. So we want to promote that, and we do that through our parks program as well, allowing students, but also families to come during after school hours to get a walk on that trail after maybe eating dinner together or spending some time in the park during the weekend. So just really providing accessible spaces for residents throughout Dallas. The research behind our program. So why do we do this? We have found that academically, students have a much better time in the classroom if they're spending time outside regularly during the school day. So studies have shown that they have better standardized testing scores, better ability to problem solve, critically think, and even lowering symptoms of ADHD. On top of that, we've seen lower levels of anxiety, stress, things like that for students who are spending time outside on a daily level. As Emily also mentioned earlier, we know that tree planting is the best greening strategy there is out there. So taking care of the trees that are there and adding more are going to help create a cooler space to recreate. So the Cool Schools program, so far we have transformed, I would say, over 30 campuses throughout Dallas ISD. And while we have mostly focused with our partnership right now with Dallas, we are very eager and in the works of expanding beyond. So obviously we want to tackle North Texas, but get our hands into the school systems down in San Antonio, throughout Austin, things like that, and then beyond into other states is a huge goal of ours. Components of the Cool School program can really vary. So we have several different levels of of our program, and it depends on funding and how much each school has received. But on a very simple level, it might just be a tree planting where we take a look at the trees that are at a school and add maybe 50 trees to an area that could really benefit from it. And then we'll tie in a curriculum for those staff members that are at that school. We also have like a Cool School Plus program where it will have the tree planting and the curriculum, but then we'll also add an outdoor learning area like you see here in this picture. These outdoor learning areas will have seating, tables, and like a presentation area so that at least one class size can come outside and take a lesson. But we also have learning amenities as well. So those can vary because each school has different needs. So that's where in the design process, we kind of finalize the components that will be going into those spaces. We also have Cool School Play, which is, your trees, your outdoor learning areas, but then also a playground for just the school to be able to use with their trails, things like that. And then finally, we have a Cool School Neighborhood Park, where those are the schools that have been agreed upon with the city of Dallas, with Dallas ISD, that they will open during after school hours to become official city parks for the residents in the surrounding area. So in a world like this, where we've seen students and kids attached to their screens and the TV, we know that connecting to nature is very important. So we want to do that by promoting those activities that get children outside. We do that through our STEAM-based, TEKS-aligned curriculum that is urban forestry-based, and really just gets students thinking about the natural world that's around them. We know that this is not to replace the lessons that are going on inside the classroom, so we utilize it as more of like a supplemental thing where a teacher has a few extra minutes in their afternoon and want to take their students outside to go connect. And so lessons like that, after school programming, these is where we really utilized a lot of the curriculum. We also have really cool amenities, as I said, and these are, again, are very tailored or customized to each school's needs and age level. So we work with elementary schools, middle schools, as well as high schools. We also work with, say, a talented and gifted academy versus an arts academy. So they really can range, and we have a lot of different offerings for that. Say a elementary school might have a root beer, like you see in this photo here, where younger students can plant a seed of a tree and see the process and the growth of that in the roots and how it relates to the soil around them. Whereas with an older campus, we might create a microhabitat with a living lab or a little grove that we've installed that they can then come collect data and monitor through various lessons that we also have. On top of that, we want to push the idea of getting outside beyond the classroom in the school day. So we provide resources to families and communities that get them coming back outside, not necessarily to the park, the cool school park, but also just outside and taking a walk around their neighborhood where they could even look out their back window and see what kind of birds are living right there with them. Enhancing greenery. So this is one of obviously a core component for us, but it's also one of my favorites. We do our school-wide tree plantings. After we've created the designs, after everything's been installed, we come back the following fall or spring, and we get everybody involved in the process and planting the trees. We know that that really fosters that stewardship and that connection to the why we are doing this. So if you're a pre-K student helping us top the tree areas with mulch, up to our high schoolers who's helping us loosen the root ball and get those trees in, aside from digging those holes, as Emily had mentioned, and getting the tree in that space, we have the help of students and staff members in the community surrounding us get these trees in. And it just really fosters that stewardship for us. We we'll talk about this a little bit more, but we do increase that tree canopy coverage to at least 30% based on our study, our findings during the analysis. But we also want to increase that biodiversity. So we plant a minimum of 15 native species, and we do varying sizes of that to either provide immediate impact and success of different generations of trees. Other greenery enhancements that we've been doing, especially lately in our designs, rain gardens, bioswales. We've done a carbon sink tree planting. Sensory gardens are very popular, fruit orchards, no-mow, wildflower areas. We like to definitely have several different greening strategies out there. So promoting outdoor play, this is where I'll touch on Molly's question. I know that you had two, but we do work with a vendor who I feel is very forward thinking in the materials that we create. It's sustainably made, heat safe, and very inclusive. Now you can see here, I think Molly, this is probably what you're referring to at one of our cool schools, is the embankment slide that is turf there. And obviously that is not going to be our first choice for surfacing. With these embankment slides, it makes it the most durable and inclusive space for that specific type of clay component, but it is really a balancing game. It is, again, not going to be our preferred. We do a lot of the mulch, which again is a little bit cooler, but compared to concrete or the rubber play in place, it's economically and just environmentally not the best for us. So it is a balancing game. We do want these spaces to be totally accessible and inclusive. So sometimes we'll have a focus in an area with several components, play components that can provide that aspect, whereas a lot of it's going to be more natural. So on top of that, We do add natural play components. So we like to sprinkle in our tree stumps, feeding. We have really cool balancing logs, things like that, to kind of be incorporated in the playground space as well as the classroom. And it gets that student kind of thinking about the connection of the tree that's growing up next to them, and how would it tells the story of the tree and how it can be utilized in several different types of materials. So we are excited that we are now partnering with a local organization right here, so that even some of the trees that have to be removed on our new builds and schools like that, we can turn around and use it right there in that playground space, which is pretty neat, I feel like, versus outsourcing materials and bringing it to Texas. Definitely not necessary here. So what is the impact of the Cool School program? So far, we have built 25 neighborhood parks. Those are the ones, again, that open during after school hours or on the weekends. Sorry, the slide kind of got goofy here. And it's impacting over 115,000 residents who previously lacked access to a park. We've also, in addition to those 25 campuses, we've transformed 5 maybe of those Cool School plays, or just a Cool School Plus, adding over 2,100 trees. And then we've worked with over 16,000 students, either through the tree planting or with the curriculum and education aspects. So we've really touched a lot of hands and hopefully encouraged a lot of that connection that we're looking for. So with the overview of Cool Schools program, I now would like to talk a little bit more about the designing of these spaces. Over the last few years, we have really kind of mastered an art of how we'd like these spaces to look, seeing what works, seeing what can be improved. We know we want the longevity of this program to last. So seeing what can be durable, what's getting used versus what maybe wasn't as popular as we thought it would be. So we do that, and we'll talk about that more in this section here. And I will say that there are 2 types of campuses that we kind of construct on. Historically, it has mostly been a retrofitting, I would say, where the school has been in place for many years and we're coming in and we're designing behind that. So we're fixing maybe some of the problems of where the trees had never been before, or connecting paths to where it makes more sense to have an outdoor learning area right over here. And oh, you don't have a pre-K play area, so let's add to that and really focus on that age group range. Whereas we are also actively working with at least 6 different new builds within Dallas ISD. So we are, it's a longer process, but we are working with the architects from the get-go so that we can have a lot of our thoughts and best practices in there, so that when that campus is opened, it's already ready to go and just in great shape. So this is the process that we have here, and we'll dive deep into it. It's very simplified here. Obviously, engagement kind of happens throughout the entire process, and we design a plan and then we revise it. So it kind of, back and forth between these little oak leaves here, but in general, this is kind of the process that we go through, and it lasts, I would say, as a retrofit, about 2 years. We'll talk about that too. Site analysis. This is a very kind of fun part of the journey as we are really scoping out the campus. So we'll have our urban foresters out there. We'll have our landscape architects. We're all kind of taking that walk through the site and seeing what's there. And we do this with the school principal as well, because they can really tell the story and the history of the school and kind of share some of those initial needs so that we are not starting with a blank slate. So again, we'll come out there with our urban forester. They will take an assessment of the existing trees. This was one of our campuses from last year. And if you take a look at that picture, you can kind of see where the trees are in that front part. They are all at South Point is the entry of the school. So we oftentimes very much so see trees lining the front of the school. They do have a really canopied courtyard, which is really a unique space, and that was really awesome to have there too. But then you can see this huge landscape in the back field area that is just completely blank. You have your playground spaces there as well that are just lacking of any shade whatsoever. So the picture behind that you can see is what we added. And if you look, there, a lot of our trees, you can kind of, you don't see it there. There was our loop trail and our future playground that we installed in that space on the far right. So a lot of our trees went there, but we also kind of spread it throughout. We added trees to the existing playgrounds as well, and then over by the staff parking lot. So again, kind of seeing the need of the school, we calculate that initial tree canopy coverage, and then we come back to with a projection of what we would need to plant to hit our 30% or more. And then we also create a preservation plan. So we want to keep as many trees there and healthy trees there as possible. So with that, we will create a plan that focuses on healthy pruning of any existing trees, fertilization plans, protection. So definitely during the process of our building, but even with the new builds that we're working on, we want to make sure the trees are getting very protected and babied, so to speak, during the construction phase. So we'll go out there and check on them, make sure the proper fencing's there. They're not storing equipment over the roots of those trees so that they are hopefully healthy by the time the process is done. Other aspects with this during the site analysis is getting, again, at that overall history of the campus. We've worked with schools that are actually geothermal with the wells under some of the space. So we know that's a complete no-go going in to plan any sort of planting or activation in those spaces. We think about drainage. We definitely don't want to build an outdoor learning area in a space that gets flooded during rains. And maybe we think about a planting plan that can help soak up some of that water through either trees or rain gardens and bioswales, things like that. And then we want to consider, especially for our retrofitted schools, future renovations that are to come. So if there's portables on the campus, oftentimes those are getting removed these days. So we want to make sure we're not lining that space with a bunch of trees that are going to get torn down in the process of removing those portables. Engagement, as I said, this happens throughout. It's a big part of our program, and we do that in several different ways. One of those being with the school. And so we'll form what is called a green team. And that's a mixture of teachers, staff members throughout the school. It could be a PE teacher. We like to have different levels of age groups that teachers teach, kindergarten versus 5th grade. And then we want different core subjects. That way we can get a wide range of feedback, and that way we really know what the school's needs are. We also collect input through the community, and we do that through outreach events. We'll have online presence where a family member or resident can kind of submit a survey of feedback through that as well. And then in some aspects, in special cases, we also work with community partners and specific projects that kind of align to that. So for example, we're working at Seagoville High School that has a very large pond. It's a really cool opportunity for education and things like that, but it's unmaintained, so it needs a little bit of work. And we'll be honest, we are not the experts on how to restore this pond, but there is a really cool local group who is willing to work with us. So that's how we can kind of turn that space around together and make it just a really unique educational opportunity. After we're getting our engagement done, or as I said, we kind of go back and forth, especially on these two steps where we create a landscape design. And we do go through several revisions of this because we want to make sure it's as accurate as possible with the needs of the school as well as the needs of the community. But we'll create our landscape design, like, for example, you see here at H.I. Holland. And this is very, I'll say, a close-up look at one of these here. We do, if you were to zoom out, see trees throughout the space as well, but especially in the areas we're activating, we really green those spaces. And we do that with different needs in mind. So shade, I cannot express that enough. It's what we need. It's how we're providing it. We do not use shade structures historically. I know it's hard, but we really want the tree to do its natural job. So we can provide some immediate shade by planting larger trees. So in some of these spaces, you'll see 100 gallons going in. And that's why I said we really do balance that with the 30 gallon or a 15 gallon just so that we have, several generations going in there and help with the success of the trees overall. And we want to consider where students are recreating. So it's important that we know, okay, we have an outdoor classroom space over here. What kind of trees might go over there versus a larger shade species that we might want to put by the playground, say. And then other aspects we want to consider is screening. So on top of the areas that we're recreating, we want to help improve the overall health of the campus. So we might plant some evergreen trees or, ash junipers that can help with the particulates that are coming off the bus lanes or drop-off lanes, things like that. And it is considering what tree is right for the space. So we don't want to put necessarily a bur oak in the playground that's going to drop a huge acorn or possibly hit somebody in the head. Or if we have a sensory garden, we might think about adding a Mexican plum that provides that really aromatic kind of experience in the spring, or a bald cypress that has a feathery kind of texture to their leaves, really kind of exploring different feelings and senses like that, as well as tying into educational opportunities. So each of our campuses do have an educational arboretum of varying different species that students can go out there and learn from, whether it's tracking the seasons through these trees, talking about the biodiversity, how different trees will propagate, and tree ID, which is important. So those are all kind of things that go into our landscape design. And even cool, I think there's a really awesome study that's out there that shows that students who have the ability to observe a tree from their classroom have better testing scores. So even just planting a tree next to the windows of classrooms can really improve a student's academics. Construction. So we want to do this with the school's best interests in mind. We do not want to be constructing out there with machinery during May when standardized testing is going on. So we overall, for the most part, activate during off season, you would say, during the summer break when students are gone. Even with intersessions schools, we worked very closely with them to make sure that we are not disrupting the school day or anything like that, because we know that is very important. So it's usually summer break, but we've also put in loop trails during spring break, things like that, just really kind of keeping those disruptions to a minimum. And as we are working with our phase 2 schools, we're working with schools that are currently going through the bond. So we're aligning our project, working very closely with their project managers to make sure that we can kind of put our scope in during the time that they're working, and kind of aligning that all so that, again, once that school is open, it's completely ready to go. We're not shutting out a space of the school just to do our part. We want it ready and in use as fast as possible. When it comes to irrigating the trees, I think Emily kind of talked about this a little bit, but we do monitor and take care of those trees for at least those first 2 years. And traditionally in the past, we hand watered with a small crew. We would come through and hand water the trees twice a week. And obviously we are now up to over 30 campuses, and that's just not in our capacity anymore. So we have partnered with Dallas ISD. They've been great in letting us create irrigation systems that are set up to their existing water lines, and we've been able to irrigate. Now, it was a challenging summer, and we learned some lessons there with the heat, but we are now able to also monitor our irrigation systems, which I think will really help when we have extreme weather conditions going forward as well. Other things, we do work with the schools, again, on those school-wide tree plantings, because we want everybody, school and community, involved in that process. We have a really cool neighborhoods giveaway program. So when we do our tree plantings, we also, most schools have a giveaway. So students could be planting a tree on campus, learning about the benefits, and get really excited and a pro in planting, and then take one home with them that day to teach their parents how to plant a tree and care for it and why it's important to have trees. So our giveaways program are really awesome, and the fact that they work closely with the Cool Schools program and just getting more trees out there. So after the first year of construction and design, and after the school is open, we then go into a second year of activation and usage. So this is really when we focus on the educational components. We'll do teacher trainings to make sure that we want these spaces used. So we want to make sure teachers feel comfortable using the lessons and tying that into the components that are out there, learning more about the trees themselves so that they can then use lessons that are related to that as well. And we want to focus on building strong relationships with the communities so that it's getting used as the neighborhood park. So we do that through resources, and we provide bilingual resources on our website. Again, that gets those families maybe coming during an off-school day out to explore the space. A student can show their parents what they have learned from an activity and kind of bring that back home to their family. So we really want that, foster that stewardship so that they can, again, kind of care for the park on their own. We've had members reach out to us and say, hey, we could use a little help here. And we've obviously loved to work and reactivate spaces whenever needed too. So what does the greenery enhancement aspect look like so far with the Cool Schools program? When we first began in 2017, over 70% of our Dallas ISD campuses lacked or had 7% or less tree canopy coverage. Oftentimes we're seeing about 3% at most of our schools is what those schools have. So again, they're in the front. We've really increased that in the last, since last year, we've increased it to at least 20. I think it's probably a little bit higher than that. We've planted, like I said, over almost 3,000 trees there. And then in the next few years, we will be hitting 1/4 of all Dallas ISD schools. That's a huge number, and they're passionate about continuing to work with us until all of Dallas ISD has a Cool School program in place. So again, we'll hit at least 45 neighborhood parks with some additional types of Cool School components at other campuses. Finally, I'd love to talk about the importance of providing park access and how we do that through our neighborhood parks schools. So we know, especially in urban areas, it's important for our mental and physical health to get outside and just breathe that fresh air, take that walk around the park. So we are excited that we've been able to do that through our Cool Schools program. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. The Cool Schools program, the Neighborhoods Park program, was kind of created based off findings from a park score that the Trust for Public Land put out there back in 2017. It let us know that 58% of Dallas residents had, only 58% had park access within a half mile of their home. And that you can think of as a 10-minute walk or stroll to a park, meaning that over 500,000 people lacked park access. This score was created based on several factors, one of those being park access, so considering how many residents lived within that half mile. Also considering the average size of a park and the total area that within an urban area that's invested for park usage. And then it took into account faculties and investments. So thinking about what is out there for residents to use, whether it's a dog park, a community recreation center, basketball hoops, picnic tables, things like that. So really taking into account what's available already. From these findings, we were able to get an interlocal agreement between the City of Dallas and Dallas ISD, and that's how they identified 45 schools that could be transformed into parks during after-school hours. So that's what spawned the creation of our Neighborhood Parks program. Over the last few years, we have worked to create successful partnerships. So we'll kind of go into what it looks like for each of our groups here. With the Texas Trees Foundation, we do obviously a lot of the project management in here, making sure that the designs are created to the needs of each school, making sure that the community's needs are being met as well. And then we also have the expertise in providing curriculum and education, and then the research and monitoring of these schools to see what the overall impact is. With Dallas ISD, obviously they're providing the land, and they've also provided a lot of funding to kind of help make these projects bigger and better. design feedback and things like that, so that we're making sure, again, those needs are being met. And then they do help a lot with the maintenance of the groundskeeping of the spaces, specifically to the outdoor classroom and things like that. And then the city of Dallas, they are putting tons of dollars down when it comes to the maintenance of these parks. So they will do weekly checks. They help us install trash cans, park rule signage, things like that, to make sure that after a long weekend, that school staff can come back to a safe and clean campus for students to be able to get outside. So they will check for that. They'll check the safety equipment as well of the playground as well. And then they help provide trees, donate trees to the cause as well. So since 2017, we had our first 5 schools, pilot schools that we completed by 2018. And until last year, we've actually were able to raise that park score up with our efforts of these schools up to 69%. And then we're going to project that to reach 78% with the additional 20 neighborhood parks that are going in. And I would say that may increase even more. A lot of the schools that we're working with that may not necessarily be a neighborhood park are creating spaces aside from that families can come and sit down after school or on the weekend and hang out and have a picnic lunch. So we are really, it's been awesome to see the school side support when it comes to that and making it a community-based area, even if it's not necessarily an official neighborhood park. So we've increased the access to many residents, and it's going to continue to grow, as you see in the next slide. With our next schools, we'll be hitting almost 144,000 residents, topping over 250,000 residents overall with our 45 cool school neighborhood parks. So this is a map here that you can see. The blue schools are the schools that are already, or the blue dots on the map, I apologize, are what we've already installed that are out there and you can go visit today after school, whereas the red ones on this list are ones we are actively working with and will have completed by 2026. So you can see we've really stretched throughout Dallas. We've tried to hit a lot of those target areas that are in need and just provide that access to families overall. So it's awesome. Again, it's been awesome to see it spread throughout Dallas, and we're ready to go beyond. So that goes into our next slide and how we can utilize you as our partners here and help spread the word and help us get out there. So how can we do that? Of course, we would love to get your help on a cool school planting or a parks planting for that matter. It's a very fun event, and we'd love to get you on there. So this year's a little bit of a lull as we're working with 20 schools, but they're kind of in the design process. So come next fall, we will have plenty of help that we can use, that we will need from you. Promoting green strategies. So help us spread the word to other communities, other cities, things like that, and help promote the stewardship of existing trees, but planting more, and then best practices for future development. So again, we're not having to necessarily retrofit schools or libraries or things like that, but make it more common practice for these spaces to have spaces to recreate outside. And of course, you can donate by coming to our website right there and finding other volunteer opportunities on there. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out, which has a lot of information on what's going on with the organization. So we'll make sure that you have access to that too. I believe that's it. So I thank you for your time. I'd love to answer any questions. If you have anything for me, I can hopefully help with that.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. That was really informative. Again, we have time for questions. As a reminder, you can either raise your hand and I will call on you, or you can type your question into the chat. I see one coming in. Can you talk first about how you select your schools, and second, what oversight efforts and data you collect to ensure your trees are surviving and being cared for?
Yes. So the first selection of the schools. So as I said, when it comes to a cool school neighborhood park, sorry, it can be a mouthful. Those were previously selected from the ILA, interlocal agreement between the City of Dallas and Dallas ISD. that's where they did reporting to see areas that would hit those targets to increase the park score and provide access to residents who previously lacked a park within a half-mile distance of their home. So those schools were kind of already kind of designed for us. We've had some substitutions, say when we have worked with a total geothermal campus and we cannot do any digging or anything like that, where we've kind of picked a school in the nearby area. But overall, those have been our cool school neighborhood parks. When it comes to like a cool school plus or tree planting, things like that, we have a lot of schools reach out to us and they'll say, hey, you know, we found about your program. We'd love to work with you. So we collect that kind of information and store it away. And then when a private funder comes to us and says, hey, we would love to support and enhance this program, we kind of connect the two dots, see if it's a good fit and go from there. So I hope that answers that question. The second aspect, taking care of the trees, monitoring the trees. So again, we check on these during those first 2 years, and we will have we'll check on the irrigation of them. We'll go through and seasonally prune them, mulch them, things like that. And if the irrigation, say it's a very hot summer, we can now increase the watering rates and things like that, so that we're overall seeing at least no more than I would say 5 to 10% mortality rate is what we shoot for at our cool school campuses. We do know, that's what we've seen in the past, just because we are planting with students. Not every tree is going to be perfectly planted in there. So that's what we've seen in the past. But that's a pretty good one. We do plant about 100 trees on each campus with the idea that we'll lose a few of them there.
Thank you. I had a question. You had mentioned a few times the 30% tree canopy goal. Is that sort of a golden standard that all communities and campuses should shoot for, or are there other factors that determine what percent our community should be looking to hit?
That's a great question. And I believe that's what the U.S. Forest Service recommends for these areas. And again, it kind of give and take depending on what's available there. Some spaces you just really cannot, there's not enough space there to plant that amount of trees. But that is the goal that we do reach for with our campuses. And it's been a process for us as well. We've learned, for example, I meant to bring up, we've have a lot of courtyards that we work in, and we originally tried planting trees in courtyards, and we now know unless we can have irrigation set up in there, things that have traditionally been hand watered in the past on summer break, when we cannot get into those schools, we may lose. So really considering where the trees can go and thrive is important to us. But that is, I would say that's a great number to shoot for at least.
My second question I had is, do you work with the parents of these students to get them involved in tree planting and volunteering? Are you presenting at PTA meetings, or how are you building that connection?
Yeah, that was a great question. So we, that parent teacher meetings is one of our best ways to get out there and share information about the program, share resources that they can, again, bring those families back and tie into the whole program. We've done like fall festivals is a great time to catch a lot of these people. We've worked at farmers markets in the nearby communities. Libraries, recreation centers are all areas where we've kind of combined events that might be already going on in the community and just share more about our program. So those are great times to do it. And then following the completion of our program, we do have park openings or celebrations that we hit on, and that just invites everybody out, school, students, families, residents. So it's another great time to kind of collect community members that might be interested in helping us moving forward with any volunteer opportunities.
I love that engagement piece of it. That's so important. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there further questions for Lindsay? Lindsay also has put her email in the chat should you need to contact her further, but we are nearing the end of our time. So there's a question. Go ahead, Susan.
Hi, it's not really a question. It's just another opportunity for tree planting. We received a notification yesterday that EPA Region 6 had approved a project with the City of Dallas, St. Phillips Community, Texas A&M, and Texas Trees. for basically some street tree planting and air quality monitoring in that community in South Dallas. And so that's some work. You can tell Ms. Monier that they were selected because they're part of that team.
Wonderful.
And so we just found out yesterday it's an exciting project because it involves trees, it involves communities with questionable air, it involves air quality monitoring. Just a really exciting project. So you have more work coming up.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know, she may, or I'll have to share that with the rest of our team. That's awesome.
Cool.
I had another question come in. Do you work with schools that have predominantly impervious or paved surfaces? Texas trees may be required to renovate areas that are not yard spaces or have little to no yard space.
Yes. So actually, great question. I meant to touch on that with what you had mentioned earlier. We have definitely worked with spaces that's very concrete heavy, and actually moving forward with some of our older historic schools, that seems to be the case. So we have, it's pricey, but we have worked to remove large parking lots or old blacktops that are no longer in use that we can then turn around into a grassy grove or, a green space to help with our initiative. So that is something that we are seeing more and more every day. And again, we see the importance in removing that so that we can make it a cooler and healthier space to be outside in.
That's good information. Are there any more questions? Going once, going twice? Okay, well, great. Well, we are going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much. As a reminder, I'm going to be emailing a link to the slides from today's presentation, and they will also be posted on NCTCOG's Water Resources webpage. If you've submitted an RSVP, you'll be getting that email. If you have not submitted an RSVP but would like that email, you may contact me at anox@nctcog.org, and that email is in the chat. I'm going to be putting a link to a survey in the chat so you can provide us with your honest feedback on this webinar. You can also click the link on your screen to access the survey as well. We really appreciate your response, so please take the time to do that. These responses will be used to improve future webinars. I want to thank you again so much for all of us who joined today. And thank you so much to our speakers, Emily Plauché and Lindsay Hoot, for taking the time to share this information with us. Our webinar is now over, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.